But Mad, you're all saying, I thought you didn't like fairies. Fear not, I don't. Not really. As I say in many a review that involve fae, fairies, elves, goblins, the fair folk, I don't necessarily dislike fairies so much as find them a general annoyance. Usually my feelings towards them are nothing more than apathy. After all, we all have our things that we get excited for in stories, and fairies, the fae, the fair folk, whatever, they just aren't that for me. Unfortunately for me, they're like really in vogue right now, so it seems that everywhere I look, I see fairies and goblins and elves and whatever else you can imagine. And of course there are exceptions to every rule, and Holly Black is one of the few authors who 100% breaks my general rule of I just don't give a toss about fairies. Because Holly Black, you see, she likes to write fiction that I often enjoy. She gives me these dark, twisty tales that do not shy away from violence and cruelty where necessary. And Cruel the World of The Cruel Prince is. It's cruel, it's scheming, it's dangerous, and yet still magical in a twisted and terrible way. Not a single character of this book can be trusted, and no character is really as they seem when you first meet them, or even over the course of the novel. Also, I mean, like, one should never trust fairies is sort of a general rule, especially if they're appearing in a Holly Black story, because you're really just begging for tragedy and for her to rip your heart out in some way. So with this book, I really tried to keep every non-human character at arm's length. I tried to not get attached. I failed. Pretty miserably. Speaking of characters, our protagonist in this story, Jude, is totally the type of protagonist I love. She's violent and angry. She's highly protective of her siblings, but she also has a really complicated relationship with them, especially her twin and her older sister. She's brave and yet terrified at the same time. She's a character who has greater ambitions than I think even she dares to admit, and that's even to herself. So while her character doesn't necessarily change dramatically over the course of The Cruel Prince, she does still change. What I saw in Jude were these small incremental changes, and that honestly just excites me for the other two books in this trilogy. I hope that means we will see a consistent incremental change in Jude over the course of the next two books, because I like her. I like her a lot. And I especially like that her interpersonal relationships are all very complicated. For example, one of my favorites that's super complicated is her relationship with Madoc. Madoc is the fairy that in the very opening, I mean the prologue of the novel, walks on in and murders her parents before her very eyes in very bloody fashion. And yet, he takes her and her twin in and raises them in fairy as a point of honor. Yes, they are not his blood, but they are the children of his wife who faked her death and ran away from him, so he feels at a point of honor he is responsible for them. And sure, it's a point of honor for him, but like at the same time, I can't help but feel he maybe genuinely cares for Jude and her twin sister Taryn. Like, I can't help it. I mean, sure, Vivi, their older sister, is his blood. She's half human, half fairy. But Jude and Taryn are not his blood in any way. I swear their relationship is absolutely a father-daughter relationship, and it seemed to have something like affection, maybe even love. And I'm like so conflicted over it. But of course I'm not alone. Jude's very conflicted over it too. She's long since repressed these conflicts within her of like, I want this person's approval, I care about him, he raised me, you know, I see him as my father, but at the same time he literally killed my father and my mother in front of me. And so over the course of the novel, she kind of has to confront these conflicts, this dichotomy, this duality within her more and more. And this ever-developing, ever-shifting relationship with, especially with Madoc, is one that I find so compelling. I want more of it. I am also trash for father-daughter relationships, so like we're already hitting a sweet spot there. And honestly, all of the family dynamics and family relationships within The Cruel Prince are really compelling and just fantastic. And I think for a lot of people, and especially for me, one of the highlights of the novel is the fact we have strong yet complicated relationships between the three sisters, Vivi, Jude, and Taryn, because they're all so incredibly different from each other. And no matter how much they might fight, including with swords drawn at one point, and no matter how much they argue and disagree, There's no question of whether or not they love each other. We know they love each other. Like, that's not, that's never in question. And yet I love this complicated relationship because their families are complicated. Oh, I loved seeing their differences and yet how not a single one of them ever thought themselves actually the better of the other. I found that really interesting. Is Jude, she's like, yes, I'm the tomboy, I'm rough and tumble, I want to be a knight, and her sister's much more like, well, I want to find love, I want to marry, and she never considers herself above Taryn. And I like that. I like that they can be different but not say, my way's better. Or, as we all know, or dreaded, I'm not like other girls. That doesn't appear, and that is really great. They're just different. Different in their interests and also different in their attitudes towards fairies. What's also hilarious to me is that almost every relationship Jude has outside of her family is essentially some form of an antagonistic one. And the one that is obviously the most antagonist is her relationship with the titular cruel prince, Prince Cardan. Oh man, is this kiddo an absolute asshole. I mean, to be fair, almost every fairy is some form of an asshole, which, you know, makes total sense. They're not human, they operate on a completely different set of rules, etc., but like, he's a grade A asshole, but like, he's not the worst person in fairy. Somehow he is not the worst person in fairy, and if that doesn't give you a clue as to how incredibly dangerous the fae are, I don't know what will. And also, god damn it, Halle Black managed to pull out the inklings of like a trope that I can like when it's done well, and that is the hate to love trope. Like, fuck, I love it when it's done well. I am like weak for it when it's done well, and this has the potential to be done well, like it started, and I was like, oh god. Oh god, there were so many moments between Cardan and June, especially in the back third, and especially these moments she has of knowing she has power over him in some way. She describes them as like a heady feeling, and when they kiss, oh my god, I hate myself for how weak I got. I don't know how Halle Black did it, but when she started like putting the inklings of the shipping of these two, I was like, I want to hate myself for it. I should, but I am weak. So very weak. I think these two are actually weirdly perfect for each other, and maybe it's just because they are kind of like Jude says, like taking a dare to run over knives, like an adrenaline strike of lightning, like the moment when you swum too far out into the sea and there's no going back, only the cold black water closing over your head. Like, oh girl, I get you. Send help, guys. I have a ship and I don't know what to do. The story of the Cruel Prince is full of schemings and betrayals, and I'm sure there'll be more than one part that definitely surprises readers. I'll say that Halle Black even managed to get me at least once, but the rest of it I managed to figure out pretty well. It's not doing anything you haven't necessarily seen before, but it's being done in such a way that makes it very entertaining, that makes it feel fresh and new. And what I like is that Black does not telegraph her plot and her twists as many other authors. She leaves just enough hints and breadcrumbs to lead you to whatever twisty conclusion she's concocted. It's hard for me to find authors who write the fae in a way that engross, entertain, and ultimately kind of enthrall me. And I guess I just love my fae with a hell of a lot of violence, darkness, and cruelty. Thanks for watching me ramble today. If you'd like to see more from me, go ahead and click that button with my face on it. It'll take you to my channel where I ramble about a whole lot of different things. Got some thoughts of your own? Go ahead and leave them down in the comments. And make sure that if you want to see more ramblings from me, you click that little subscribe button. That's it for me today, you guys, so until next time, cheers.